I'd like to call to order the North Aurora Village Board meeting of Monday, December 21st, 2020. And we are on Zoom. And we'll open our meeting with silent prayer meditation. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Steve, we have roll call, please.
Mayor Berman,
Here.
Trustee Carroll,
Here.
Trustee Curtis,
Here.
Trustee Gaffino,
Here.
Trustee Gately,
Here.
Trustee Lowry,
Here.
and Trustee Martinez.
Here.
I'd like to open up our public hearing on a new boundary agreement with the city of Aurora. Is there anyone has any questions or any comments about the boundary agreement? Be voted on tonight.
No public comments, Mayor Berman.
Hearing none, I declare our public hearing closed. Next is audience comments, and accept audience comments, except for those that are speaking on the Moose Lake Estates, and we'll have them later on the first item in new business. Is there anybody else that'd like to speak on something other than Moose Lake?
Mayor Berman, I see none.
Thank you, David. Trustee comments. Consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Trustee Carroll,
Here.
Trustee Curtis,
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry.
thank you, Trustee Carroll. Trustee Curtis,
Yes.
Trustee Gaffino,
Yes.
Trustee Gately,
Yes.
Trustee Lowry,
Yes.
Trustee Martinez.
Yes.
Well, under new business, item number 1, Mr. Toth.
Thank you, Mayor. At this point in time, I'm going to actually hand the conversation over to Attorney Kevin Drendel.
Thank you. So the first two items on the agenda obviously are related. The first one is the annexation agreement. The second one is the plat. The reason that they're in that order is because the annexation agreement incorporates the plat among other things. It affirms the details of the developer's obligations, lays out public improvements that the developer has agreed to take on. It addresses limits that MI Homes has been willing to agree to that are now incorporated into the annexation agreement that Mike Toth will read, summarize, and it gives them a fee lock. So the plat is one of the items that's addressed in the annexation agreement. Obviously, if the annexation agreement is approved, the board would turn around and approve the plat. The plat also, though, stands on its own. Whether the annexation agreement is approved or not, we still have a request for approval of the plat. So the plat also is on the agenda in its own merit. In terms of the annexation agreement, it requires a 2/3 vote of the board, which would be 5. The plat requires only a majority, which would be 4. And that is, I think, a summary of the process and why the two items appear in the order that they appear on the agenda.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. So the first item is an ordinance approving the third amendment to the annexation agreement for the Moose Lake Estates subdivision. This item was first introduced to the village board at the October 19th committee of the whole meeting. Public hearing was scheduled for November 16th of this year. At that time, it was heavily attended, and the actual item was tabled to the December 7th, 2020 village board meeting or committee of the whole. At which time on December 7th, staff and the village attorney had given an overview via PowerPoint presentation on the items that were part of the request. Since then, the village has been working with MI Homes on some items to incorporate into the annexation agreement, which would include the original paragraph 16 that would prohibit on the 21 lots adjacent to existing homes, homes that are 1 story or less than 1,900 square feet. And also in the staff report, you'll see that on the second page of the staff report, which has been incorporated into the third amendment, there were some items listed, 5 in particular, that I'll go through real quick. And again, these would be incorporated into the annexation agreement, the third amendment too, and then that would be holding them responsible for these items. So the number 1 is the model home to be constructed by MI shall be no less than 2,500 square feet and shall include a 3-car garage. A 3-car garage shall be an available option in all homes should any home buyer select and pay for such an upgrade. No 1-story homes shall be constructed with less finished square footage than the Kirkwood floor plan, which is approximately 1,457 square feet, and no 2-story homes shall be constructed with less finished square footage than the Leiden floor plan, approximately 1,695 square feet. All homes shall include, at a minimum, a wainscot of brick on the front plain facade ranging in height from 2.5 feet to 3.5 feet, a covered front entry or front porch, a side light or window in the front door, a decorative garage door defined as a door incorporating windows into the top panel and or panel style other than colonial, and a standard foundation landscape package along the front of the home. Last, at least 1 available elevation per floor plan shall include brick on the first floor of the front plain facade and a hipped roof. So those were the items that were added since the last committee of the whole discussion on December 7th.
I have a question. I received an email late this afternoon from an attorney saying that they were only looking to address the plat this evening and not the amendment.
I don't believe that's true. I believe they were actually looking for a vote on the third amendment.
We're going to follow our prescribed agenda as it was presented. So disregard the letter. Mike, are you done with your?
I am. Thank you, Mayor.
And what I'm going to do is open up for audience comments here. And when the audience comments are done, before we have our village board comments, we're going to move the question and go at it as a discussion of the question. So Becky D'Amato, the president of Homeowners Association, would like to speak.
Thank you, Mayor Berman. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you so much. President Berman and all trustees of North Aurora, thank you for your time. I hope you're doing well. The Moose Lake Estates HOA Board has spent a significant amount of time working on a resolution to the current situation involving the completion of Moose Lake Estates. In the last 6 weeks, we have worked around COVID-19 environment, reviewed over 1,000 pages of FOIA documents, had discussions within our community and meetings in an attempt to discover a solution that benefits the village, the homeowners, and MI Homes. On December 2nd, 2002, during a committee of the whole meeting, Dave Bolger, owner of Gladstone Builders, addressed the board, providing a conceptual review for Moose Lake Estates. Bolger provided an explanation of Gladstone's product, square footage, and price points of the homes. Moose Lake Estates is 73% complete, with an average home size of over 3,500 square foot. For the 2019 tax year, paid in 2020, the Moose Lake Estates homeowners paid approximately $2 million in property taxes supporting schools, libraries, police, and fire departments, and community programs. The original annexation agreement was approved in part, if not in whole, based on the conceptual review of the property and product. the diversity of the homes it would make available in the village, and the benefit of the taxes generated by the estate-style homes. MI Homes is now building in 23 Chicagoland communities, 11 of which are dedicated to single-family homes. In the existing MI portfolio in communities such as Lamont, Plainfield, Shorewood, Lake Zurich, Lake Barrington, and Libertyville, there are a wide range of models that are more similar in size, features, and architecture as to what is already prevalent in Moose Lake Estates. Whether it be these existing models or newly created models, it is factual that MI Homes is capable of completing the remaining 68 vacant lots in Moose Lake Estates with a far superior product than what they have presented. I was asked why they would not consider the models for Moose Lake Estates that they are building in our sister community in Plainfield or other subdivisions. It was communicated that those models had been retired and they had moved in a different direction based off of market research. But yet the retired models are still actively being marketed and sold in their other communities. The models proposed for Moose Lake Estates are the low end of their existing portfolio, with no unique architectural details or design, with a starting square footage of under 1,500 square foot and a starting price of $200,000. These proposed homes or similar are being built in Elgin, Joliet, Plano, and Killdeer. While the empty lots are generating little tax revenue, what type of tax revenue are these proposed homes going to generate versus what we know MI has available that would blend into the existing community? MI has not demonstrated their commitment to adding value to the village, community, or residents. This has also been represented by several comments during open meetings, one of which an MI representative indicated at the November 16th meeting that MI could come in and build an 800 square foot home if they wanted to. While that may be true, it is representative of how this project is being viewed. It is documented that the village made several concessions and supported Gladstone when requirements of the annexation agreement were not going to be met over the years. In a letter to the village in November of 2010, Gladstone promotes themselves as a major stakeholder in North Aurora's home construction industry. Gladstone asks the village for cooperation and consideration on concessions. Leveraging the village's cooperation will mitigate losses and create value for the existing and future residents of North Aurora, as well as preserve and protect the high quality of housing stock offered by Gladstone, to which both the village and its residents have become accustomed to. Whether it's Gladstone or any other builder, we ask that you hold them to their original commitment to the village. We now ask that you support your constituents and this community, not just the builders who build here. The existing homeowners continue to ask for the support for Moose Lake Estates to be completed to its full potential, as was originally proposed by Gladstone, and to which we supported with our investments in the purchases of our homes. It has been noted that two ordinances before the village board trustees are the third amendment to the annexation agreement and the approval of the Unit 3 plat, and that since there are no significant changes to those items, there is nothing to warrant a no vote. However, I ask for a no vote using that same logic, as there should also be no significant changes to what was originally proposed as that conceptual plan for this subdivision, as that was the rationale for the approval of the annexation agreement in the first place. If Gladstone Home had proposed estate-style homes, but then moved forward with 1,500 square foot homes starting in the 200s, would the village have taken action then? While the design standards remain silent in the declaration, the design standards are implied, as Gladstone had control over the development and remained consistent in his construction and completion of 73% of the development. At this point in time, as the acting HOA president, I would also like to propose additional language be considered for the third amendment to the annexation agreement. We would like for the amendment to specifically outline and state that the remaining lots within Moose Lake Estates will become part of the existing HOA and not a separate HOA. For the reasons stated above, I ask that you vote no on the two ordinances until such time that the amendment to the annexation agreement can be revised and that MI Homes proposes a product that aligns with the original conceptual plan in which the village trustees at that time took into consideration in approving the annexation agreement and the Moose Lake Estates development. Thank you for your time and your consideration. Happy holidays. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Also, Patrick Rippon, attorney for the Homeowners Association, was going to speak.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Patrick.
All right, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. As indicated, my office represents the Moose Lake Estates Homeowners Association in connection with MI Homes application. In large part, my engagement has focused on educating the association on the content of various development documents, as well as the interplay between subdivision and zoning regulations and private covenants and bylaws. And I will say, in connection with a comment that was made earlier, I think the letter that was referenced earlier regarding the withdrawal of the annexation amendment, that letter was likely the letter that I sent out, and that was based on a conversation I had with the developer's attorney earlier today. And if I misinterpreted our conversation or was mistaken, I certainly apologize. But if the application for the amendment is still pending, I believe that does give the village an opportunity to participate in, even if in a small way, to encourage the applicant to adhere to the guidelines that Ms. D'Amato just spoke of earlier. There's no question, and my comments basically to that effect are contained in the letter that I sent out earlier today. There's no question, I think, that the properties that we're talking about here are subject to the declaration and accordingly are subject to the association and accordingly are subject to any lawful rules and regulations that are adopted by the association. And I think the association's goal here is to work cooperatively with the declarant. And I've represented a lot of developers over the years, and I know these applications tend to take longer than you'd like them to take. But I still think there's an opportunity to work with the developer to establish guidelines that conform to the existing product. We don't have to guess. We don't have to make things up as we go along. We have 75% of the subdivision, which tells us what the architectural specific guidelines are. And because for whatever reason, the declaration is silent on specific architectural guidelines, but is not silent on the association's authority to regulate those items, I think it's appropriate for the HOA, and in fairness to the developer, to let them know that that's our intent, that's the association's intent, and we're not trying to blindside anybody, but we think it's a good opportunity to sit down with the developer and discuss these things further. Finally, I'll just say that with regard to the annexation amendment that's being proposed, I think it's dangerous to adopt these minimum guidelines as presented. They're actually not presented as minimum guidelines. They're presented as some conditions. And I don't think we ought to do that without acknowledging that this annexation agreement does not supplant or supersede the private covenants. The declarant can be subject to conditions in the annexation agreement, can also be subject to conditions in the declaration or rules and regulations adopted by the association. So even to the extent the village board wanted to adopt these provisions here, I think they should be with the caveat that they are not intended to replace any private covenants which might exist on the property, and that the declarant would be subject to those as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. I've heard both of you say that we can, as the village, can apply standards adopted by the village in 2002 to the existing annexation agreement. What authority are you relying on for that?
Well,
how can we adopt oral argument and stuff that was presented that's not incorporated in the written annexation agreement? What authority are you relying on? I mean, I fully understand what your frustration and I was, but my conflict is we have to have some authority as a village to do this, and we're hearing a lot of opinion and a lot of we should do this because it's fair, but but we need some legal basis to deny their application. And I haven't heard a legal basis from the HOA.
Sure, I'll be happy to comment on that. And I think your attorney has already commented on this at the prior meeting. Listen, to the extent the declarant does not want to enter into an annexation agreement, I would agree that the village really has no authority to deny their plat. The plat's consistent with the preliminary plat. The only modifications that were made were requests from the village. So with regard to the plat, I would agree. An annexation agreement, the village can do whatever it wants as far as requesting items in that annexation agreement. The village is entirely within its rights from a legal standpoint. And Mr. Grendel, I'd certainly defer to him as for advice on this, but the village is totally within its rights to not agree to enter into the annexation agreement. So it does have legal authority to deny the annexation agreement amendment. And concurrent with that, it certainly has the ability to negotiate terms which are agreeable. The flip side of that is if you impose terms in the annexation agreement that the declarant doesn't like, the declarant doesn't have to enter into the amendment either. So my point is simply this: I don't think you can shove anything down the declarant's throat in the annexation agreement, but I think the village is within its rights to propose reasonable conditions. If the developer is agreeable to those conditions, they can sign the annexation agreement. If they don't have to, and they're simply left with a plat and the current existing private covenants.
Any other questions?
I have a question, and maybe Kevin Drendel, you can answer this for me. What exactly is the relationship between the builder and the HOA? If the HOA decides to propose minimum construction and facade requirements, can they do this late in the game, and would MI be subject to them? And because I'm just trying to understand, wrap my head around the relationship between what the board can do and what the HOA's responsibility is to do with minimum property standards.
I think I can answer that in part, and I think I would defer to the HOA's attorney in part. The part that I would answer is that the covenants run with the land. The covenants are a private matter. We required them in the annexation agreement for the purpose of maintaining the open spaces and retention areas. But beyond that, we didn't dictate what those covenants had to include as content. So those covenants apply to all of the land, over which those covenants are recorded. They stand separate and apart from anything that the village does. If those covenants, for instance, failed to provide for the maintenance of the open space and the retention areas, we would have something to say about it, but beyond that, not really. In terms of your question about, well, let me, I guess, briefly offer my response to Patrick Griffin's statement about the interplay of the covenants and the annexation agreement. It would be my understanding that we would not be able to affect the covenants that exist on the property through an annexation amendment. And I don't believe that anything in the annexation amendment negates the covenants or addresses the covenants either way. It's more or less neutral, I think, in regard to the covenants. Again, because that's really the province of private land ownership and not necessarily the province of municipal authority or regulation. I mean, theoretically, it could be if we had dictated what had to be in those covenants in an annexation agreement, then we would have more to say about them, but we really didn't, beyond the requirement of the maintenance of the open areas and retention. Beyond that, I don't know that I would wade into the rest of, to try to answer the rest of your question, which I think really gets more into the specifics of these particular covenants and how they relate to the property owners and the developer.
Thanks, Kevin.
Kevin, I got a question for you. This is Martinez. So this agreement was made in 2002. Now it's 2020, right? So it's about 18 years ago, right? And my impression of this is that we're in a way here set up to represent our constituents. You know, our best interest is always in behalf of our constituents, and obviously this is raising a lot of concern, right? So if we were to make a decision or an amendment, it sounds like we would be somehow liable, right? But how is this not holding us liable from a class action lawsuit from every home owner, you know, for depreciation of their homes or damages to, you know, their
You know, we're getting a little bit away from the sequence that I had set up for discussion. I think we want a discussion from the homeowners association and from the attorney and any other outside of the board who had any valid information. We've heard from so many over the times that, you know, it doesn't fit in and everything else. So I think those things are pretty common. We all know about that. But I think what the homeowners association has said this evening, what their attorney has said this evening, has given us the information that we need to then go ahead with our motion. And I think we need to call the motion and then discuss the motion and then vote on the motion. So I would entertain a motion to
That's not right.
Mayor Berman, we do have one other person who wanted to address the village board.
And who was that?
It would be Vince Rosanova from MI Homes.
Oh, yes. Very good.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Vince Rosanova on behalf of MI Homes. Following up from what we heard this evening, I'd just like to clarify a few points. The first point is that you are being asked by several speakers at our last meeting and Mrs. D'Amato tonight to breach the annexation agreement contract with the landowner. The annexation agreement, which is a contract, requires approval of final plats which are in substantial conformance with the preliminary plat. This provision requiring approval is specifically contained in paragraph 4A of the existing annexation agreement. As you heard from us on multiple occasions, as well as various other sources, the final plat before you this evening is a mirror image of the preliminary plat and therefore must be approved. In addition to the requirements of the annexation agreement contract, state law, as well as your own subdivision control ordinance, requires that final plats be approved, provided they're in substantial conformance with the preliminary plat, which is the case this evening. As a result, sadly, you're being asked to vote in a regard that violates the annexation agreement, as well as village code and state law. We do not believe that this is a fair or proper request. It's also worth noting that those requesting that our plat not be approved are in jeopardy of a cause of action known as tortious interference with contract. The second point I'd like to make this evening is the reason that you're being asked to breach the annexation agreement contract and not approve the final plat of subdivision is because some people believe that MI's homes are not big enough or expensive enough. In our estimation, this is clear exclusionary zoning, and frankly, it's dangerous. I'm surprised by the comments in this regard that have been made over the past 2 months at public hearings. To be clear, limitations on square footages and home cost is classic exclusionary zoning and a subversion of market forces. The market demands diversity in housing types and a greater range of price points, and some folks are asking the village to stymie supply side forces and create a community that is less representative of the actual village demand. Nobody has stepped up in the last 10 years to build 4,000 square foot homes in this subdivision, and the reason is clear that that is not what the market demands. To be clear, there are no such square footage or price limitations placed upon this development, either in the annexation agreement, the E3 zoning district, or any of the approval ordinances. In fact, at our last meeting, we heard testimony from a former board member who clearly stated that at the time of approval, minimum square footages were considered by the village, and it was decided not to proceed with such a requirement. We comply with all E3 zoning district requirements and are required to be approved. Despite this, some have even gone as far as to suggest that having a variety of housing options in Moose Lake Estates would create a divided neighborhood, like there would be some sort of separate classes of people living there. We will never agree with this concept or belief. Also, I think it's important that over the last 2 months, everybody acknowledge that in an attempt to be responsive to the residents' more reasonable request, we've incorporated several provisions into the annexation agreement to which MI is willing to be bound should the village elect to move forward with the annexation agreement amendment. Mike Toth went over those requests, so in the interest of time, I will not repeat. To Mr. Griffin's request, we do acknowledge that Unit 3 is a part of the covenants, and to Mr. Drendel's comments, the annexation agreement additional elements are not in any way undermining or releasing the declaration. In response to Mr. Griffin's presentation, I'd also like to point out that the declaration he refers to is not within the village's purview. The declaration is essentially a private contract between the developer, its assigns, and each homeowner within the Moose Lake Estates subdivision. The village has no authority over the declaration, but despite this fact, for some reason, Mr. Griffin seeks to discuss the declaration at the village meeting this evening. I would note that the declaration has no such architectural or minimum square footage requirements. Any attempt to amend the declaration violates the declaration and infringes upon the specified developer's rights. Notably, the section that Mr. Griffin referred to in the declaration for his assertion that the HOA has control over construction is section 8.02. What is missing from the letter you received this afternoon is section 8.02 is titled Outbuildings and relates to construction of outbuildings, pools, basketball hoops, and other accessory structures on the lots. Section 8.02 has nothing to do with the construction of homes on the lots. The term home is a defined term in section 1.16 and nowhere in section 8.02 on which Mr. Griffin relies is there any sort of restriction on what types of homes can be built on the lots. With regard to the assertion that the board has the right to adopt rules and regulations, that is true, provided such rules and regulations are proposed and are directly consistent with the declaration. The association board is not allowed to adopt rules and regulations which conflict with the declaration. The incorrect reading of paragraph 8.02 that the board has the approval rights over the homes is what Mr. Griffin relies upon when he states that the board can adopt rules and regulations relating to the architecture and square footage, which is a misreading of the declaration. I would also like to point out that section 9.08 of the declaration gives only the declarant the power to adopt regulations relating to the design and exterior finishes, not the board. So with that, we respectfully request your consideration of the annexation agreement as well as the plat this evening.
All right, hearing none, then.
Can't get any voice.
Pardon?
Mayor Berman, we do have 2 additional people that wish to address the board.
All right.
Mike Hurley.
Mike Hurley, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Mayor Berman and trustees, thank you for your time and attention on this. Thank you, Mr. Rosanova, for your comments and your citations of a whole lot of paragraphs that the village board has never seen.
There it is. You're not muted.
Trustee Carroll, Trustee Curtis, Trustee Martinez all raised a couple of questions as to is the village board scope able to address the items of concern of the residents? And I will answer that in a very simple and emphatic yes. And the reason for that is if you read the draft of the annexation agreement revision, paragraphs 16 and 17 specifically address certain architectural features and elements related to square footage that haven't been addressed before and have not been reviewed and debated by the board. So I want to point you to those two paragraphs. Consider those. We also have input on those, extensive input on those, that is relative to not only the 2003 adoption of the annexation agreement and all of the meetings and content with Gladstone, but the proven elements of what the actual content of the development has become. So I'll keep it brief at that. Please use those two paragraphs as your tools to consider elements that are now been added to the annexation agreement revision. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, Mayor Berman, Patrick Griffin, the HOA attorney, wishes to address the board again.
All right.
Thank you, and I'll be very brief. Just wanted to respond to a couple of comments by Mr. Rosanova. And the first one is that, you know, and unfortunately you see this from time to time in development applications, you know, the idea that somebody who speaks out on behalf of their interests is somehow going to be subject to a lawsuit for tortious interference. In Illinois, we have a statute called the Citizens Participation Act, which protects people's rights to do that. You know, to suggest that somebody's going to be subject to litigation for participating in the government process, I think is not in comport with the law. Second, he mentioned a couple times that we're looking to amend the declaration. We are absolutely not looking to amend the declaration. As I indicated in my correspondence from earlier today, we're looking to adopt rules and regulations consistent with the declaration. And that's provided for, that process is provided for within the bylaws of the association. And there's a fair amount of Illinois case law on that topic as well. And finally, Mr. Rosanova mentioned that I forgot to mention the caption for section 8.02 of the declaration, which is entitled Outbuildings. And he's right, I did not mention that caption. Section 14.02 of the declaration tells me I shouldn't look at the captions. It states, and I quote, "The article and section headings are intended for convenience only and shall not be construed with any substantive effect in this declaration." So if you ignore that heading and you read the simple plain language of section 8.02 of the declarations, I don't think it gets any clearer when it says there shall be no construction on any lot which results in a building or structure inconsistent with the general architectural design and aesthetic flavor of either the home on the lot or the remainder of the homes on the premises. So just wanted to offer those responses. Thank you.
All right, Mayor Berman, I do not see anyone else wishing to address the audience or address the board, sorry.
All right, so we can have discussion with our board. We need to have a motion to move the question. Would someone make that motion, please?
Motion to move forward.
A motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
A second for that? Trustee
This would be for the annexation agreement, the first item, right?
First item on the list. Item number 1. Trustee Gafino, second.
He's muted.
You're muted.
Thank you. Yeah, I second that.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. We can now discuss it as board members.
So I have another question for Attorney Drendel. What I'm seeing and what I'm hearing and what I'm reading, it seems like this isn't really an issue for the board to intervene on. It seems like this is an issue between the HOA and the developer to hash it out within their declaration. Am I correct in that interpretation?
Well, certainly some of what was talked about, which focused on the covenants, that's right. That is not a matter that we have any involvement in.
But can we just speak specifically to the minimum property size, the facade requirements? Who has authority to create restrictions on that? I don't think that's something that the board needs to be involved in.
Well,
based
we could have, it could be the subject of zoning. We set maximum floor area ratios and we set minimum lot areas and minimum lot widths and maximum building heights and things like that. So it could be something that we would impose through zoning, but it isn't in place at this time. We haven't done that. It's not part of our zoning code. It wasn't part of this annexation agreement or the PUD provisions that were adopted along with the annexation agreement. And it also could be the province of the covenants. Sometimes you see things like that in private covenants. But minimum building sizes are not presently incorporated either in our zoning code or the PUD or in the covenants, as far as I know.
But can you speak to what Mr. Griffin just spoke about, how that the remaining properties need to be in conformity with existing structures? And then Mr. Hurley also mentioned something about Article 16.
Yes. Yeah. So Mr. Griffin spoke about the covenants. So that's really not our province. That could be an issue of discussion or maybe even disagreement between the HOA and the developer. As far as what Mr. Hurley spoke about, he's referencing sections 16 and 17 in the current annexation agreement amendment that is in front of the board now. 16 is restriction on location of homes. Mike Toth went through what they have agreed to has been incorporated into the annexation agreement. And I don't remember who said it, but annexation agreements are subject to negotiation. We are not required to accept the annexation agreement as written and as it appears before you. In fact, we could attempt to negotiate different terms than what you have in front of you. Of course, what you have in front of you is the result of negotiation up to this point. Section 17 deals with model homes and home options, so it does kind of get into some architectural elements and so on. I think that's what Mr. Hurley was referring to, and he is right that the annexation agreement is within our province. We could accept this and agree to it, or we could reject it, or we could table it and see if we could negotiate better terms. And we would have no fallout any way we went because it's strictly a matter of contract, and we're not compelled to accept what we have here. Of course, MI Homes also isn't compelled to accept whatever provisions we might counter to what we have here.
Thank you, Kevin.
I have to say that this process from start to finish has been mucked up. We're in a complete untenable situation as a board because we're being asked to clean up something that's 18 years old, because at the time that the original annexation agreement was written, they decided not to write in these standards. And for whatever reason, I know some of my friends were on the board at the time, but for whatever reason that wasn't done, and we're asked now to clean it up. And I don't like being put in that position. I also don't like being threatened by an attorney, either have our citizens threatened or the board threatened with further litigation if we don't side a certain way. I just don't like that, the tone that sets for somebody that's supposed to be a partner moving forward in the village. And I think that this stinks all around. I think the people in Mooseheart, they made an investment in their property, and there were certain mistakes made along the way, and I don't, frankly, I don't know what to do about it. I mean, because it sounds to me like M&I can build, if we do nothing and reject everything, they can come in and pull permits on lots 1 and 2, right? Or units 1 and 2.
Yes.
And they can build whatever they want, subject to whatever the declaration says and whatever the current zoning says. And in unit 3, I mean, I don't know. I think I think that M&I, if they want to be a partner in this community, needs to go back and really, truly make some true concessions. When you got the average home size is 3,500 square feet, and we're being asked to approve a 1,400 and a 1,600 minimum house size, there's more that they can do without the threat of litigation to our citizens or the village. And at the same time, I think as a village, we're stuck with what was done 18 years ago. And I understand the fact that the market's different. And I sympathize with Mr. Rosanova's comments that nobody's come in and built a 4,000 square foot house in 10 years because the market doesn't bear it. But so there's got to be some compromise. Is the minimum square foot 1,900 square feet or 2,500 square feet or 2,200 square feet? Something that the HOA can live with and the residents can live with. But the other thing I'm hearing is the HOA does, even if we pass it, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, if we say yes to both of these, the HOA still has recourse under their declaration to sue the homeowner or the declarant or Gladstone and try to determine in court what the minimum lot size should be. Is that right? Under that section 802?
Yeah, nothing that we would do here tonight would affect the private property rights that are contained in those covenants. So yeah, yes, whatever those covenants provide, however they're interpreted and applied, we are not going to affect any of that by our vote tonight, even if we approved everything or denied everything. They will still be in place, and the residents who are property owners there could insist on compliance with them.
I like to add to what Trustee Carroll said. He's pretty much spot on with everything. You would think, and I think, size does matter there, but I think to me, it's more the look, how it blends in with what's there. If the 4,000 square foot home isn't the choice for everybody, then, something smaller, but it's got to blend in and be harmonious with, the rest of the neighborhood, because, we have to live with this stuff. The builders come, builders go. And, I've seen several other subdivisions kind of deal with this as well. And some of their homes did somewhat fit in because they weren't as large and as designed, I guess, with the stone and the brick that Moose Lake has. So, the options or the suggestions, the latest round of negotiations were just options too. And to me, things should be standard, not an option. So, I've been against this look from day one. And to me, I would think as a builder, I would want to come in and have goodwill with the neighbors. And there should be, like Trustee Carroll said, some middle ground that we could all reach. And it seems like there hasn't been much. I know, hats off to the village and staff. They've been working their tail off on this. And, they brought up the idea of what if we waived some fees? Here the village is looking to put some skin in the game, which could amount to $300,000 or $400,000 if they would, do some improvements to the property as well. So, I mean, we've really tried. Staff has worked hard. Residents worked hard, and it just seems like the attitude from the developer is just like, here it is, and too bad if you don't like it. And so I'm not a fan of it. Thanks.
I have something to add. I haven't had one person in Village of North Aurora tell me I like this project. And we sent it back twice. It was my vote. I sent it back to the cow. And I thought there was going to be some negotiations with the developer. Well, then at the last meeting, I did state that I'd like to see the builder do a little bit for the people of North Aurora. I haven't seen this in this document. So I can be frank with you. I'm a no. I'm not happy with it. That's where I'm at.
I totally agree with my, fellow trustee, Mark Ailey. I feel the same way. I totally understand trustee Carroll also. I think it's a very fair view on all of this matters. I think there should have been a little more work out in between them to accommodate all of this. This is not the way this relationship should have been. There should have been, if we have no choice to but accept this, it shouldn't be left up for a vote on us. 18 years ago. So I would have liked to see a little more compromise from both ends, and so everything could have just moved forward nice and easy.
I would like to add, and Trustee Carroll, you're exactly right. This is just, a big bag of nothing good that we got handed to us. But, I'm trying to be fair with both sides. And I keep going back to the fact that there are three parties involved: the builder, the board, and the HOA. And even if we approve everything, which again, we have no legal standing as to say why we shouldn't approve something that we've agreed to, 15, 20 years ago. However, it does give me some benefit and some reprieve knowing that the HOA does have recourse. They do have a legal recourse to go back to the builder and hash this out. So again, we need to take a look at the Third Amendment and the plat are two separate things from minimum property standards and requirements. And I don't think that's on us and should be on us to dictate that. That is something that the HOA should go back. And honestly, it should have been addressed, when they incorporated the HOA. So again, when I think about why should we vote no on this? Yeah, we all think it's a bad idea. We all know it's a bad project. But legally, we have to look back at, what did we agree to when this is all written up? What can we do? We're trying to negotiate. We're going back and forth. If we vote no to the first item, like Mark said, they could build whatever they want. At least by voting yes, we have a minimum. A minimum's been established. If we vote no, there is no minimum, and it's not going to prevent them from building.
Well, I haven't spoken on this yet, and my position is that I was elected as a trustee, and that means that the constituency put their trust in my opinions and my decisions here on the board. And the outcry from the individuals who live in that community is too loud and clear and pervasive. There were over 50% of the residents at the last meeting attending this meeting, or the board meeting back then. And to me, that spoke very, very clearly as to the intentions of how the people that elect me want me to vote. So clearly, I can't agree to the situation as it exists right now. That said, I would love to see more dialogue between the HOA and the developer to come to some kind of a mutual agreement on what could be possibly built. If larger homes are not being sold, if the market is no longer demanding that, perhaps a very, very attractive smaller home, but not too much smaller than what exists there, might be the answer. If indeed the business, MI developers, can do a profitable enterprise there under those circumstances. So I'm at this point, my position is I can't in good conscience vote for either one of these, the Third Amendment or the ordinance approving the plat. So that's kind of my position at this time. I have to vote according to the will of the people that put me into this office.
Other discussion? I have a comment, or comments, I guess. It's the old Berman history lesson, which we're all familiar with. You know, when in developing our community, we always wanted balance. We wanted good balance from retail, commercial, a single family, multifamily. So we wanted that balance, and we wanted that to be our standard. And I think our comprehensive plan, and I think all our planning has led us to that. And I think we've done an admirable job. You go back to the pre-1950s, we had 50-foot lots and very small homes. In the 60s, when we had our tremendous growth, our lot size went up from 50 to 70 to 80 feet. And that was during the time that we grew, doubled our population, more than double our population in that period of time. I'm talking about from 1960s to 2020, our population has gone from 2,000 to almost 20,000. In 1990s, we had larger homes. Still, we had a good mix of homes. We had lower priced and we had larger. In the 2000, we added our estate lots, 44,000 square feet lots, because we wanted to have that balance of the smaller homes, which we had a significant number of, to something, a major home that we could get all different types of people want to move to North Aurora. Smaller homes, larger homes, and enjoy all the amenities that we have in our community. We're looking for that balance. My thoughts are what MI Homes has proposed does not meet our requirements or the requirements of our Moose Lake Estate homeowners. I do believe that a negotiated quality home for Moose Lake Estates could be proposed. And I think there needs to be more discussion and more belief in the community of North Aurora and what we can see in the future as far as homes. With that, I would ask for roll call vote.
Trustee Carroll,
And this is just a vote on the third amendment to the annexation agreement, correct?
Yes, you're right.
No.
Trustee Curtis,
No.
Trustee Gaffino,
No.
Trustee Gately,
No.
Trustee Lowry,
No.
and Trustee Martinez.
No.
Thank you. Motion is defeated. We needed 5 votes, we have 6. Moving on to item number 2. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 2 is an ordinance approving a plat for Moose Lake Estates Unit 3. The Unit 3 consists of 36 lots, all in compliance with the E3 district lot area and lot width minimums. As previously mentioned, the only changes were requested by the village with alignment of public utility easements and alignment with current infrastructure.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
I don't think we have any reason not to approve this plat.
Other discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Carroll,
Yes.
Trustee Curtis,
Yes.
Trustee Gaffino,
No.
Trustee Gately,
No.
Trustee Lowry,
No.
and Trustee Martinez.
No.
Mayor Berman, no. It was a 5-2 vote. And Motion is defeated. Item
It's
number 3
on just a matter of housekeeping. The vote on the plat only requires a simple majority. So actually, Mayor,
Oh.
unfortunately, you don't get to vote on that one.
All right, disregard my vote. I'm sorry. All right, item number 3, Mr. Bosco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 3 is, and item number 4 are related. The business known as Ramondo's Pizza and Pub is changing owners. As you are aware, our liquor code does not allow the transference of licenses from one owner to another. So we're actually doing this as kind of a housekeeping. We are looking to decrease the number of Class B licenses by 1 on this vote. And on the very next one, we're looking to create one to issue to the new owners.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Carroll?
Yes.
Trustee Curtis?
Yes.
Trustee Gafino?
Yes.
Trustee Gately?
Yes.
Trustee Lowry?
Yes.
And Trustee Martinez?
Yes.
Trustee, Mr. Bosco, item number 4.
Item number 4 is now increasing the number of licenses by 1 in the same Class B. So we can issue, so the mayor can issue it to the new owner.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? The name is going to remain the same, I understand.
Correct.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Carroll?
Yes.
Trustee Curtis?
Yes.
Trustee Gafino?
Yes.
Trustee Gately?
Yes.
Trustee Lowry?
Yes.
And Trustee Martinez?
Yes.
Item number 5, Mr. Toth.
Yeah, item number 5 is an ordinance approving a jurisdictional boundary line agreement with the city of Aurora. This item was the subject of the public hearing earlier on the agenda. This was discussed by the committee of the whole on November 16th of this year. There was one provision added since then, which was per comments with the city of Aurora and their reviews. And that was that both Aurora and North Aurora agree to operate in good faith with regard to any potential economic incentive agreements for development and or annexation of the flex area. Any economic incentive offering or the processing of an economic incentive request shall be in line with the jurisdiction's normal practices. This was just to establish some basic table manners in the event that either North Aurora was to work with the developer and how we approach any incentive offerings or requests. The city of Aurora, I believe, is considering this item for final approval tomorrow on consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? You know, we did have a boundary agreement in existence for the last 20 years, 21 years, I guess. And so we've negotiated a new one, which has got a couple of changes, but other than that, same thing. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Carroll?
Yes.
Trustee Curtis?
Yes.
Trustee Gafino?
Yes.
Trustee Gately?
Yes.
Trustee Lowry?
Yes.
And Trustee Martinez?
Yes.
Item number 6, Chief Fisher.
There we go. For some reason, I can't unmute now, even though I could earlier. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Board. I'm seeking the authorization to purchase emergency lighting equipment for new squads. 3 squads have been purchased for the police department in this current budget year. Two of the 3 are actually in, which is pretty quickly considering. A total of 3 quotes have been obtained for the equipment and the installation. Minor Electronics Corporation, who's a licensed installer and dealer of equipment, came in with the lowest quote of the 3. Their costs for the equipment and installation of emergency equipment, such as the lights, sirens, consoles, etc., and the install on the 3 vehicles is $27,121.58. The next lowest bid was $28,716, and the highest bid or quote was $32,286. That also includes reinstallation of equipment that is already in the current squads that will be transferred over. I'm recommending the authorization to purchase the equipment and install from Minor Electronics Corporation in the amount of $27,121.58.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Carroll,
Yes.
trustee Curtis,
Yes.
trustee Gafino,
Yes.
trustee Gately,
Yes.
trustee Lowry,
Yes.
and trustee Martinez.
Yes.
That concludes our new business. I have no old business. I have no comments as village president. Although I do say that that was our boundary agreement with Aurora, now gives us a boundary agreement with Batavia and Aurora and Sugar Grove.
Correct.
We're all, the next 20 years we're set. Committee reports. Trustee comments.
I have one comment. I like to commend the staff and Public Works, John Laskowski's team there. The lights look outstanding behind Village Hall. A lot of creative new ideas, and I'm sure it'll even get better as years to come. But man, we have a lot of compliments on that, as well as the silo. It's really a nice addition down there. Thank you for good work.
Now, I'd like to make a comment to staff. You know, I'm looking at what happened with Moose Lake today and driving around the village and looking at, you know, similar things happening that had happened at Mirador and Windstone, where we have developments go under and then new builders come in, and we've got lack of uniformity within our subdivisions. This is something I'd like staff to take a look at so we could prevent any of these issues going forward, whether it's addressing it in our zoning code or any other way we can remediate this situation from happening again and protect our residents. If that's something we could do, I think we need to get on top of that.
Trustee Curtis, that's something that was raised by another trustee recently as well, and it's our intent to bring it to the board and go through the process of the zoning code, probably in the next couple of months. Where annexation agreements come in, there might be some differences, but we definitely can look to tighten up some of our zoning code and our PUD code.
Thank you.
You know, the truth is we've always relied on our developers. You know, what they presented to us initially was what was going to happen. We had good faith in them. We've been burned a couple of times, but I'm sure they didn't want to burn us. They just financially caused it. But yes, we should do something. Any other trustee comments? Mr. Bosco? Oh, Mr. Bosco. Administrator.
He's muted.
Sorry.
There he is.
There I am. And I had all that to say, I have no comment.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate that.
Mr. Attorney.
I have no report.
Thank you, Mr. Grindle. Village Department, Finance, Bill Hannah. Hannah?
No report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
No report?
Yep.
Community Development, Mr. Toth.
No report.
Police Chief Fisher.
I just want to wish everybody happy and healthy holidays.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
And Public Works, Mr. Laskowski.
I have no report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. We have no executive session. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned. Call meeting to start soon.